Crystal of Wisdom presents He who has no culture has half the dignity.
This story happened to me many years ago. I was a very young boy at the time. I was about 12 years old. I lived with my parents in a small town not far from Vancouver. It was just an ordinary, unremarkable town. Behind the town, there was a forest. It was very beautiful here. It was especially beautiful in the fall, when some trees were starting to turn yellow, maples were turning bright red, and some trees were still green. It was such a colorful tapestry of nature. I really loved this time of year. Summer was over, but it was still very warm during the day. The street where our house was on the outskirts of the city, and even through the window you could see all the colors of the autumn forest. In the next house lived Matteo. He was 12 years old like me. Matteo was very funny, and one could say even reckless. From the first days of our acquaintance, somehow our friendship began. Since then, Matteo and I have been friends for many years. Hannah, a girl with 2 blonde red pigtails, was also friends with us. Hannah was 14 years old. She was 2 years older than us, so we often had to listen to her opinion. But that didn't bother us at all. The 3 of us had fun running around the streets, playing games, or just lying on the grass, looking at the clouds and dreaming. It was a good time. On a neighboring street lived a strange man. Why was he strange? Well, for one thing, he didn't dress like everyone else. At that time, men usually wore grey suits, the same undistinguished cloaks or coats. This man wore a brightly colored jacket in a large plaid. He had a scarf or shawl wrapped around his neck for some reason. And he wore a very strange hat on his head, and he had a strange beard. My mom told me he was a painter. His name is Theodore. And he dresses so strangely, perhaps because it helps him find inspiration. It was a very strange explanation, and I didn't understand it at the time. Matteo and I thought he was funny, but strange. That's why at first we avoided him, and were even afraid of him. But then we got used to him. He turned out to be harmless and even funny. What was also interesting was that he kept painting his house with colors. Every time he added something new, a flower, an animal that looks like a wolf or a bear, or even a funny face. He was strange, and sometimes we would run past his house and stop to see if there was a new drawing on his house. And when we found a new drawing, we'd go on our idle way. There was also a very beautiful place on the edge of the city, between the outermost houses and the forest, and near the bank of the river. There were freestanding trees growing there, and the whole ground was covered with grass, on which we liked to lie. Someone even put some benches on the grass, in the shade of the trees. It was our favorite place, but on weekends people came to this place, lots of people. They would have picnics, eat, make a lot of noise. And when they left garbage, and it spoiled our mood. We understood that these people had been working all week and needed to rest, but we were not happy about the consequences of such rest. And then, one day, we came to our clearing as usual and froze at what we saw. The benches were painted with colorful paints, and at the entrance there was a post with a sign. "This is a park. Please do not litter." "That's kind of weird," I said. "Yeah," said Matteo. "It must be our crazy artist," laughed Matteo. "I like it, though. It's really pretty," said Hannah. And we had to agree. While we were looking at the benches, a voice came from behind us. "Do you like it?" It was the artist Theodore. We looked around fearfully and nodded our heads. "I like it too," said Theodore, "and let's pick up trash together. Maybe people will stop littering," Theodore suggested, and handed us sacks. We agreed, and 2 hours later there was no trash left in the clearing, and there were 4 full bags standing at the entrance. "He who has no culture has half the dignity," Theodore said, some strange words. We silently agreed. In the evening, I told my parents about it. They praised us and Theodore. The next day, we came to our clearing in high spirits. There were no more garbage bags, the clearing was clean, and the painted benches lifted our spirits. But the next weekend, it was the same again. There were picnics again. The next day, we came to our clearing, and again, we saw trash. It seemed that people didn't notice anything. In the clearing, we saw Theodore. He was painting a large, majestic oak tree. The artist saw its gnarly branches reaching for the sky like outstretched arms and completed his creations. When we asked him why we had tried so hard to clean up the garbage and people were littering again, Theodore again said a very strange phrase. A person who has not gone through a good school always smacks of rudeness. He needs to polish himself, striving for perfection in everything. Matteo and I shrugged our shoulders and looked at Hannah. Hannah replied to Theodore that she completely agreed with him. Matteo and I nodded our heads in agreement. When he had finished with the oak tree, Theodore asked us to help him. Together, we brought planed boards and logs. Then, we set up the new benches. Theodore brought wicker baskets, and we placed them near the benches. Theodore made signs with the words, "Please throw garbage in the baskets." We put the signs near the baskets. The weekend passed, and we came to the clearing again. Contrary to our expectations, there was no more trash lying in the clearing. It was only in the baskets. It was surprising and pleasant. It meant we were understood. It meant we hadn't tried in vain. Theodore was right. We all need to strive for excellence. Theodore came in and smiled. All week, Theodore and I had been preparing the field. We took the trash out of the baskets. We put pebbles in the paths past the benches. Under one of the bushes, Hannah saw a groundhog burrow and called out to us. "I have an idea," said Theodore, and he made a fun sign that said, "I am a groundhog. This is my home. Please don't sharpen here. I don't like it." At the entrance, we dug 2 poles in. On the poles, we hung a sign that said City Park. Now our clearing was a solid place. We were proud of our work. And Theodore again said a strange phrase, "Even beauty must be helped. Even the beautiful will appear ugly if it's not decorated with art." He was a strange artist. We continued to decorate the park for us. Each time, people left less and less garbage. Now they only walked on the paths, and often you could see adults and children just sitting on benches, listening to the symphony of birdsong and admiring the park. And then our park was noticed by the city authorities. The entrance to the park was closed. Some people came, brought different tools and materials, and a month later, there was a grand opening of the renewed city park. How beautiful everything became in it. Renewed paths, benches, swings, places for rest, lanterns. The mayor of the city spoke at the opening. He thanked the artist Theodore for the wonderful idea of creating the park. Not far from the mayor, we saw Theodore. He saw us too, smiled broadly and waved to us, and we waved to him too. From then on, people walked through the city park every day, and no one picnicked in it anymore, and of course no littering. And after a while, my father was offered a very interesting job in Montreal, and our family moved to that big city. We settled down very well, and soon enough, only memories of the old life remained. But often, wandering through the crowded streets of the metropolis, I remembered about that park, about the strange artist who played a fateful role in the life of our family, and about his no less strange words. He who has no culture has half the dignity. It was only when I grew up that I realized the true content of these simple yet very important words. I realized that no one will respect you unless you learn to treat yourself with dignity. And personal dignity begins with personal culture. And by increasing our culture, we nurture respect for ourselves. And other people notice this on the most subtle level. And they also begin to treat us the way we deserve to be treated. And I realized that it was no coincidence that my father was offered a new job, and our lives changed dramatically.
If you liked the video, give it a like.